was quite straightforward. I presented all the evidence. Every single exhibit that was tendered was presented by me. But the evidence that was also tendered without witnesses, these were tendered by way of affidavit. I would apply to the commission. That was really towards the end, where there were reports that needed tendering, accounts that had been submitted and needed to be tendered. I would do so by application. So basically, that was my work. But when I started, also, I asked for reports from all those who were, by the order of the High Court, who were assigned a responsibility that includes the receiver appointed by the courts. At that time, the commission had not appointed a receiver. It included the Registrar General and others that were mentioned in the High Court order, to give us a report as to what they were doing, how far they had gotten, and so on. I also accompanied the commission on visits, and it's all in the report where we went and what we visited. And the commission report, the secretary would prepare a report for the commissioners. Unless you have specific questions. By 1 year, we had done a substantial part of the work. However, there were still some institutions that needed to be investigated. I think the last institution we worked on was NAWEC, because we had quite an conference. So I think there was some pressure for us to finish as well, deal with properties. And I think ideally the government would have preferred that we submit interim reports, and the reports on properties would be interim. But then the commission decided that no, it had to finish all its work, and then we submit its report. So time constraints were on two, really. Time was too short, so we couldn't finish a lot of things. The other constraint was resources. The capacity to investigate the president outside the shores of the Gambia was limited, and it needed international support, which only the Ministry of Justice, only the government can get. And the third constraint was that the government had an agenda, and as a result, they wanted us to finish earlier rather than later. So we did I think the commission did what they could. For us, council, we put all the investigators could find to the commissioners in terms of what was relevant to the mandate, and we submitted that. We summarized the evidence, and we assisted in any other form that the commission required, and that was it. So the challenges for me were normal. As I said, I was in the ministry for 14 years. I had not really served in a commission as counsel except the review commission after the 1981 coup d'etat, when then Kukoy Samba Sanyang attempted a coup, and there was quite a large number of people were detained and they were commissioned. I did serve as counsel, but I had never really served as counsel to to a commission under the Commission of Inquiry Act. But I know how they were set up because I was there. So I was drawing from that experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'd go back to look at MOJ2, MOJ5A, and MOJ5C. MOJ2 is the legal notice, if you have it handy, and 5A and C are the orders of the 22nd day of May and the 21st day of July 2017. And perhaps if I could ask whether MOJ5A, you had mentioned, we had already spoken about it, the fact that you were briefed in some respect. I would like to...
MOJ5A is which one?
Is the order of the 22nd day of May.
The High Court order?
Yes, the High Court order. Did MOJ5, did this freezing order assist in any way in the Commission's mandate?
No. The Commission's mandate was to investigate all assets. I mean, it was wide-ranging, but as far as assets were concerned, it was to investigate all assets that were listed and all assets. Can I borrow your MOJ5? I'm not sure.
Perhaps I asked the question because we have noted that when you look at MOJ2, which is the legal notice number 15 of 2017, and look at the annexures to the order, MOJ5A, they're identical.
Yes.
So that's the genesis of the question, whether this was all in a bid to assist the operations of the Jammeh Commission.
But no, the court order came before the Jammeh Commission. The
Yes,
court
that is
orders are
noted.
older.
Yes.
And my understanding was that the Attorney General had launched a case under the, as the heading shows, well, the application is not here. But it was under the Anti-Money Laundering and Combating Tourism Act 2012. But then later, I believe, government decided that it was more efficient to carry out investigations by way of Commission of Inquiry. So the two are related. So the case in the High Court was stayed so that the Commission of Inquiry could go ahead as the more efficient means of obtaining all the, I think, investigating, obtaining the necessary evidence, and making the, probably making the necessary findings. Yeah, it was more efficient than using the courts. That's what I understood. So the two are related. They complemented each other.
Perhaps let's move on to the sales. I wish to begin from identification of what the assets were first before we actually speak on sales and how that exercise ensued. But I would categorize the assets into the livestock, vehicles, and real property. We can begin with the livestock. How was the identification of livestock?
Well, I'd rather the classification of assets, well, I mean, that's your classification, that's fine. Livestock,
if you have a
okay,
different suggestion, it's fine.
No, I mean, the assets are listed in the TOR of the Commission. It's assets The properties are set out in the schedule that were to be investigated. The companies and with the lease numbers, and the livestock was not listed, but A is the existence, nature, and method of acquisition of assets and properties, including those set out in the attached schedule. So it was not exhaustive, and any other properties brought to the attention of the Commission. And then B is the company's businesses and bank accounts. C is the activities. So that's what we had. So, but assets of obviously is wide enough to cover whatever assets belong to the president.
Of
so
course.
That's fine. So
yes, the committee's interest, perhaps the members will probe on the other assets. I wish to probe on just the three categories I've mentioned: the livestock, vehicles, and real property. But more so livestock and vehicles. With regards to the livestock, we can see that MOJ 5A, which is the order, bestows it upon, or rather puts it in the custody of the GILMA, the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency.
Yes.
Now, once the matter was stayed and the commission had began operations, from the perspective of identifying the livestock, how did the investigation team go about it?
The livestock, I know that there was a team and that went up, that tagged the cattle. I'm aware of that. And that,
perhaps before we speak about the tagging, we can lump in the applications and the nature of the order. Perhaps if you can.
Okay. As regards the livestock, as one of those letters that I had written when I started office was to write to Gilma I think it was, I wrote to Gilma, I wrote to the Registrar General, who was responsible for all movable assets, and asked that they submit reports to the commission, Gilma wrote, I'm sure you have the letter. I think it was Gilma. They wrote saying that they had, in fact, not really taken over, and because they had challenges and set out the challenges. Registrar General also wrote to say that, yes, they were trying to take over, but that cattle were missing, and, and so on. So I'm sure you have those correspondence anyway. So yes, I wrote to the Attorney General to draw his attention to the fact that, to the Registrar General's letter, and suggested that action should be taken through the courts. I think ultimately the matter was discussed, was brought to the attention of the commission, and my position was that since it was a court order that attached this asset, it was for the court to make any decision relating to the cattle, because that was where we started. And finally, I think an application was made to the court for the commission. The commission made an order that the cattle should be sold, because otherwise they would all dissipate, the property would disappear. And
my apologies, Ms. Bensouda. If the Secretariat could furnish the witness with, it's in line with your submission now, your evidence now rather. MOJ 8F1, the attachment to it, the order for the sale of cattle, such that the witness is able to peruse and guide us on the order.
MOJ3? This is not about cattle.
MOJ 8F1 at the chair, but it's easier to reference MOJ documents because they're easily accessible.
This volume doesn't contain.
It's also contained in the chairperson's submission. However, it's easier to reference it from MOJ's documents.
8F1.
Yes.
The interim order. Okay. It's attached, yes, the attachment. Interim order re livestock.
Yes, you can proceed. My apologies for stopping you on your stride.
Okay, yes, this was the order made by, this was an order made 11 December 2017. This was an order made by the Commission. I think, wasn't there another order as well? Yes, so what is your question? This order was made, but it was sent, after it was made, discussions ensued, I believe, as to whether the Commission can just, no, actually, because in this order, if I recall, the leave of the High Court shall be sought in respect of this order, if considered appropriate.
Indeed.
And an application was then sent to the High Court, and I think the matter went before late Justice Jao, and he granted the order for the cattle to be sold, but he ordered that it was the sheriff of the High Court who should be responsible. So by then, I believe the team was set, the tagging team had been set. At least I think I came across correspondence to that effect. So the matter was brought to the attention of the commissioners and the secretary. And that's how I think the sheriff took over the sale of the cattle. And that was the end of my participation in it. I did follow from time to time about the report. I don't think we received the report before we ended. The commission submitted its report. I can't thereafter remember getting involved in the sale of cattle.
So the identification of the livestock was done by the Ministry of Justice, specifically the Registrar General, just to get it right. Is that what you had said?
There was a team.
There was a team, okay.
There was a team comprising Gilma, Registrar General, and the Secretary. I think that's the way it was set up, and I think that's in the that was the team.
So the application was made because of the reports that cattle were getting lost or being slaughtered, if I reference the order.
Yes, if I recollect, the report's response from the Registrar General showed that the cattle was being stolen, I think. So the question was, something had to be done, definitely. So we brought it to the attention of AG, and I think there was some discussion. There must have been. Anyway, did we have the authority? Both the chairperson and I agreed that because of the provision that they had the same powers of a High Court to make interim orders, under similar circumstances, the High Court would would make preservation orders. And those would include selling, because if you don't sell, whoever you ask to take custody would have to be resourced, would have to be given the money to take care of the cattle. So it was decided that it was sold pending, should be sold pending the outcome of the inquiry or the High Court case. So it was in order to preserve and avoid dissipation of the cattle.
Okay, I understand the powers of the Commission in its relation to the powers of the High Court to preserve. However, I want to make a I would like to know the wisdom behind subjecting the Commission's order to for leave from the High Court. Was it because there was already an order preserving these assets?
Yes, it was the High Court that issued a freezing order. So the High Court already was seized of jurisdiction. So as a commission of inquiry, there cannot be concurrent jurisdiction on the matter that is already before another court. So, so we had to defer to the court. We were not a court, we were just a commission of inquiry. Ordinarily, we had the same power to issue interim orders, but the court was already seized of the dispute, and if we couldn't really do anything relating to the cattle without seeking the approval of the court. And that is why we deferred to the court and advised that the court's leave should be sought.
Thank you, Ms. Bensouda. I understood what you said. I will ask it in a different way, just for the benefit of the members. Can a commission of inquiry set aside the orders of a high court?
No, no.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And once it had been ordered by the Honorable Justice Jao, as he then was, that the Honorable Sheriff would conduct the sales. Once the sales had concluded, did the Sheriff's office report back to the commission?
I can't remember receiving a report before the commission ended.
Okay.
I can't remember that.
And out of curiosity, when you submit your final briefs to the commissioners, does it involve analyzing the evidence in totality?
On the subject matter, yes. All the evidence that has been submitted. We summarize all the evidence that have been submitted.
That would have also included the issue of cattle?
No. Cattle was an interim. The sale of the cattle, ordinarily we just investigate. Where the cattle acquired, and so on. And there would be a report on that. But I don't think there was any investigation on the acquisition of the cattle. The cattle were treated as assets owned by the president, against which, at the end of the day, the government could execute. But they were not investigated to that detail.
Thank you. When I look at the operative parts of the order by the commission, especially the third paragraph, the one that begins the secretary. Can you see it?
Yes.
It says that the secretary to the commission shall, in consultation with counsel assisting the commission, take charge of and supervise the process. Now, I ask this question because of this provision. How the valuation of cattle was conducted?
I don't know how the valuation of cattle was conducted, because this was 11 December, and the High Court the Attorney General went to court to seek the leave of the court, I think the court order was dated. Do you have a copy? Justice Jawo's order.
Yes, we do. It should be MOJ 5B. It should be in that
5.
compilation.
Okay.
Is it the one?
Okay. Put it down, yes. It's fine. This was on the no emoji. No, this is not the one. This is what they are looking for. Ruling. The ruling is dated 3rd January 2018. The ruling is dated 2nd January 2018.
Yes, we definitely have it. I just need to guide the members. If you could give me a second.
I have it here. If I have a copy.
In any case, we have it in our records. I would furnish the high table with it.
So, as I said, this application, the order of the commission is dated no, it's not this one. The order of the commission is dated 11 December 2017, and the application was filed by the High Court for its approval of the order of the commission. The High Court, on the 3rd of January 2018, this is just about 3 weeks, ordered that and leave was granted. However, the Honorable Sheriff of the Gambia is ordered to conduct the sale, and all proceeds of sale paid into an interest-bearing account, and the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency shall assist the sheriff in the valuation of the livestock. So it's implicit in the order. So,
my apologies, Ms. Bensouda. Honorable Chair, you can find it in OHS 11.
okay.
OHS 11. Please proceed.
Yes, and the court ordered that the livestock, the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency shall assist the sheriff in the valuation of the livestock.
We have a copy of the motion, if it would help you with your.
No, I have the ruling. I mean, what the court ordered is what is important.
Indeed.
So it ordered that the livestock be sold. It be sold by the sheriff, and Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency would assist the sheriff in the valuation of the livestock. I know a tagging exercise had taken place earlier, and the tagging was to identify the livestock and give them numbers. And I know it was the livestock agency and the secretary that worked together in the tagging. But when it came to valuation and sale, as far as I know, it was then valued by the livestock agency and sold by the sheriff. After the High Court, to be honest, after the High Court ruling, I lost interest. I didn't follow up.
That's fine. Just by way of information, the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency confirmed that they did not value the cattle. The cattle were then subsequently valued on the ground by a few individuals, including the Office of the Sheriff, including also the Registrar General at the time, and a private individual.
Well, that's a breach of the order of the court. And I'm sure if it had been brought to the attention of the court, some action would have been taken.
Certainly, it is a breach of the order of the court, and I would extend it to the breach of the confidence of the commission, because the commission made the order in a bid to preserve the value. And
it was a what of the commission? The confidence is a what?
The breach of the confidence of the commission.
Well, I wouldn't say that. The commission really did not. The commission's interest was only to ensure that the assets that it was being asked to investigate were actually preserved. Now, the High Court, when the High Court intervenes and says this is the way it's to be done, then that was the end of the commission's role as far as the preservation of the assets were concerned. So the commission moved on. And really, I don't think there was any interest in the cattle. After that, I don't think so. I can't remember any interest in the cattle. But the High Court is the court. You know, its mandate was superior to the mandate of the commission. And it was seized of the matter. So it was entirely the business of the High Court how they proceeded after they made the order.
I agree with you. But I would go on to say that it was a breach of the confidence of the commission because it was the initiative to preserve the cattle emanated from the commission and from what this Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency and end with the Office of the Sheriff, by the admission of the sheriff at the time on record and the admission of the director of Gilma at the time on record, they failed in their duties. And that's the genesis of why I say the confidence of the commission was breached. But it's neither here or there. I would like us to look at the other sales with respect to the procedure you took with the cattle. Let's move on to the vehicle sales. Please take us through the manner in which the vehicles were identified.
As regards the vehicles, the Commission had carried out visits to various locations, to inspection visits.
Actually, Ms. Bensouda, my apologies for interjecting again. Honorable Chair, I would ask that we stand down for about 2 minutes. I don't wish for us to go off air. It's just a stand down. I wish to consult you.
Then sit down for 2.
Please, Ms. Bensouda, please proceed.
Can you remind me of the question?
Certainly. Just the same thing we did for the cattle sales. I wish for us to go through the vehicle sales.
As regards the vehicles, the Registrar General did provide to us a report dated 11 July called Initial Report of the Task Force Enforcing High Court Order Freezing Assets of the Former President, in which he had listed, had given an kind of inventory of the vehicles and other assets. And subsequently,
My apologies. Did you say it was dated the
11 July
11th of July? Okay.
2017.
Please proceed.
And it mapped out the assets and where they were. So afterwards, sometime in August or September, the commission, I can't remember the date, you should have it, the commission started its visits to different locations. And some of the locations visited were the State House and the Future Lake Building premises and Kotu, as well as Kanilai and other places. And it was noted that there were vehicles everywhere. Luxury vehicles and buses, mainly at State House, but Fisher Lake also had a great number of vehicles, as well as the Kotu workshop grounds, and I believe Kanilai as well. So the commission discussed, and I think there would have been a discussion also with the AG. I think one of the challenges the AG indicated that he had was capacity issues to deal with the situation as it was. The Registrar General had been made, given custody of all these movable assets, but really he wasn't set up to deal with a situation like this. So it was agreed that at some point that the commission would make an order. It would agree that the vehicles would be sold. And there were inventories anyway, inventories from the vehicles, from the Office of the President, of the vehicles that were at State House, and so on. So the commission made an order that the government should identify the vehicles that it needed for its operations, and then all the rest should be sold, pending the commission proceedings. Now, these included vehicles that were also identified as having been purchased from state resources, from government resources. But in any event, it was kind of done suo motu. The commission on its own decided that the situation had to be arrested, and there was no point in having all these assets lying around all over the country and being cannibalized. And so the best approach would be to have all these movables sold and the money deposited into the commission account pending the outcome of the commission proceedings. So I think that is, and the order that it made set out the mechanism as to how this was to be done. The vehicles were to be valued, and the commission was, the secretary was put in charge of the process.
Indeed. But what was missing from that order that is evident in the first order is the need for leave of the High Court. Could you explain?
That is correct. If I recollect, there was a discussion as to whether there was a need for the matter to be taken to the High Court, because there was a concurrent jurisdiction, although the High Court was seized of the main suit. I think it was discussed, and I think it was agreed with the AG that the Commission did have the jurisdiction. I think I recollect vaguely that there were discussions around it, but it was agreed that the Commission could proceed. Now, one thing that needs to be pointed, okay.
Continue.
All right. The difference between, of course, a commission of inquiry and a court is that court never acts on its own. You have to put an application before the court for the court to grant it and proceed. So obviously then you have to have a lawyer, prepare the application, go and convince the court that this was the proper thing to do. The case it was on but stayed pending the outcome of the investigation. So I think the Attorney General did indicate a preference if the Commission had the power for the Commission to, since the Commission has had investigated and have seen the vehicles for themselves and had seen the need for something to be done, and that if the Commission had the power, they should just proceed and deal with the situation. And that is what happened. Instead of the Attorney General having to proactively go to court, seek court order, and so on. And then, of course, what the court will order is not predictable. So I think they preferred the Commission to do it. The Commission had no objection in making the orders that it did because it was comfortable that it had the power to do so, and that is why it did.
Can you enlighten the committee on that power vis-a-vis the way the cattle orders were dispensed with?
So in terms of what difference?
In terms of getting leave of the court, seeking leave of the court.
That's what I said. There are two approaches. Either the Attorney General goes to court, files an application, and puts evidence before the court. Obviously, that was a little bit cumbersome. Now, in terms of the Commission was investigating, and it had similar power, authority, to make interim orders of preservation. So it was easier for the Commission to make those interim orders of interim orders, since the Commission themselves, unlike the court, had gone around and seen the vehicles for themselves, and have seen the status of the vehicles. So if you look at the terms of the order, usually I would make an application, but in this case, the Commission made the order suo motu, which it was entitled to do, because it was a commission of inquiry.
And that's the point I wish to be enlightened on, because there was a preservatory order by the High Court existing by the time the Commission made its order.
There was no preservatory order. There was a custody order. The orders the court made was an interim injunction and an order placing custody of all these assets in various institutions.
And also preserving them from the use of...
I can't remember the preservation order. The preservation in the nature that the Commission made, the court did not make. The Commission
That is agreed. It's not in the same nature.
It's not the same. The Commission said, don't allow this vehicle, I'm interpreting the order, don't allow these vehicles to be wasted.
Yes.
Please sell them, because they are lying everywhere, being cannibalized. Government, take what you need for your operation, sell the rest, and put the money, custody of these assets, and keep them until this case is over. So the two are not the same.
That's understood. However, an injunction is an injunction, and an injunction was made placing the vehicles at the custody of the Registrar General.
Yes.
And I thought the first order was in line. In fact, I would commend the Commission for seeking leave of the High Court, because it was quite appropriate, because there was already an existing injunction made by the court, which injunction was present on the day, on the 12th day of December 2017, when the order was made to preserve the vehicles. And just, if I may digress a bit, Honorable Chair, it is MOJ 8G.
MOJ 8G is what?
It's the order.
The order of the commission
Yes, to sell vehicles.
to sell the vehicles. Yes.
If
Can
this-
I?
if,
Can I?
Secretariat could assist the witness as well. MOJ 8G 1.
No, this one is about the cattle. I'm sorry.
Your mic is on. Sorry?
It's the order of 12 December 2017. There's a copy in my bundle as well. But I'll use yours if...
If you're comfortable using your copy,
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's 12 December 2017.
it's 2 pages, 12
2
December.
pages, yes.
Yes,
starting
it is.
with following an inspection of the vehicles and other assets.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's it, yes. I can use this. if
Very
you-
well. Honorable Chair, are we on the same page? Thank you. I would like for you to just expound on why the need to go to the leave, need not to seek leave of the High Court was opted in light of the fact that there was a High Court order placing custody and preserving the assets and placing custody to the Registrar General.
The Attorney General, the question for the Commission, from the Commission's perspective, was whether it had the power, pursuant to its terms of reference, to make an interim order in exercise of its powers under the Constitution with respect to the vehicles, the subject matter investigation. Now, the vehicles were in 2 categories. The category that was purchased by the President from public funds, and there was a category that they were just there, as we assumed they were vehicles belonging to the President. So the Commission came to the conclusion that it had the powers to sell the vehicles. The question was, as you are saying, your question is why we did not go to the High Court to seek leave. It was thought it was not necessary to do so. The Commission had concurrent jurisdiction, and it could exercise its powers without going to the High Court to seek leave. Even though it did go to the High Court to seek leave the first time, it was not necessary. So did we have power to? We did go to the High Court because we were uneasy about just going ahead and selling when the High Court was seized of jurisdiction. But by the time we came to the vehicles, we had discussed the issue, and both the Commission and the Council and the Attorney General agreed that we had authority to go ahead without going back to the High Court. The position before the High Court remained frozen, pending the outcome of the case, the investigation that the Attorney General was going to launch under the relevant law. But then, of course, once the Commission finished and submitted its report, it was expected then that the Attorney General would go back to the High Court and conclude the case before the High Court. So in other words, the Commission was within the umbrella of the High Court, if I may describe it that way. So if it could use its power to go to the High Court and tidy the situation. So there was no clash, to be honest. We were all on the same page trying to protect the public interest.
Okay. But let me ask, what you have said that the commissioners and the Attorney General were in agreement.
Yes.
If I may ask what your opinion was.
My opinion was in tandem with that of the Commission.
Okay.
That they had the power to make the order that they did, and they made the order.
Now, I would contend with that decision by the Commission and the Attorney General, but I wish to learn from the rationale of the decision, because from my perspective, here we have a High Court matter in offices pending the determination of the suit. In the interim, a commission of inquiry that was supposed to investigate and report was issued. And the High Court, for your evidence, stayed the suit. And at the time it stayed the suit, the preservatory orders were still active. I had asked you earlier whether the Commission of Inquiry could make an order varying the High Court's order, and your answer was no. I would still like to be enlightened in that context, why this was so special, why this was different.
My answer that the Commission cannot vary a High Court order stands, but I don't think at the time we considered it as varying a High Court order. Perhaps the effect had the effect of varying the High Court order. But when we practice law, we don't practice law in an academic way. We practice it in a practical way. What was the practical thing to do, and what was in the best interest of the state, of all parties, including the former president, to do? Is it to allow all those assets? The government was investigating. The Attorney General had a claim that these assets were likely to be not investigating an issue. But meanwhile, the subject matter was responsible from a legal point of view. What was a responsible thing to do? The Attorney General could go to the courts, file an application. Remember, this is vacation time in December. Anyway, I think it was tedious, to be honest. Did the Commission have the power? That was a short route. And would it serve the same ends? Yes, it would. And the practical answer was yes. The responsible thing to do, in the best interest of all parties, in case the former president came and said, well, these were my vehicles, the answer would be, well, they were out in the open. You did not come and claim them. So we had to do something, because at the end of the day, the Attorney General also says these are government assets. So We have liquidated your vehicles and the money is in court, in the bank account. So if you can show that they are yours, the money is yours. If the Attorney General can show that the money is his, the money is. So these are the powers that are vested in any court to make sure that it's the ultimate goal of the court is not in any way rendered futile. So for me, perhaps your perspective, it's your perspective, I respect it, but it was not one that exercised the mind of the Commission in any way. We don't see any problem with it.
And it's because the Commission did not see any problem, that's what worries this committee. That the court was abreast with the issue, it was before the court. And perhaps let me engage you further on academic discourse. And to say that, maybe let me put it simply. What if the government had lost the case against Yahya Jammeh?
Good question. Then Yahya Jammeh would have money in the bank that he will then enjoy.
But then you
but
had...
if he,
Sorry,
let me just conclude. What if he won the case and then he goes to look for his vehicles and could not find any vehicle? He would have a case against government, wouldn't he? Because government was the plaintiff under whose umbrella the vehicles were taken, placed in its own custody, because
Certainly.
Remember the Registrar General is a officer, public officer. Government took his vehicles, put them in the custody of the Registrar General. Registrar General did not have capacity to take care of the vehicles. All the vehicles are cannibalized and stolen. All the cattle walked away. He can't find anything, neither money in the bank, no vehicle, no cattle. What would he do? He would sue the state. And that is why a responsible plaintiff, if you go to court and you seek an interim order, on the circumstances where you take the defendant's assets, then the proper thing you do is to make sure that at the end of the day, if you lose your case, the defendant doesn't come after you. And that's precisely why it was so important that interim orders were made of preservation. And if, since under the circumstances, the government did not have the resources to be taking care of vehicles sitting in various workshops all over the country and sitting in various venues all over the country, the thing a court would do would be to say, okay, you're both disputing assets. These assets depreciate, they are movables. So let's preserve the status quo. What is the status quo? In the sense that nobody loses is maybe preserving the status quo. Let's sell, let's preserve, let's do a preservative order where we liquidate these assets. So whoever wins has money in the bank. So that is why the interim order was made. So whether it was done by the court or done by the commission, I do not, to be honest, see an issue. And to be honest, I don't see why a parliamentary committee would see an issue in that.
Very well. We have noted that you've had a lot of issues with what the parliamentary committee is looking into. But
no, it's because you said from the committee has an issue with it. And I'm responding, and I'm saying I don't see why the committee should have an issue in the fact that the commission sold these assets that were being stolen and not the court.
I said that I, and I believe the committee rather, would have an issue with the fact that the commission did not see it as a problem to sell vehicles without seeking the leave of the court. That's what I said.
Okay, learned counsel, that's a technicality.
Yes.
In practical terms, with due respect, that's a technicality. In practical terms, what was the objective of taking former Yahya Jammeh to court by the state? The objective was they wanted to recover assets from him, which they believed he had acquired wrongly, and more likely, because that was the case that was being made, more likely these were state assets. That was their case. A commission was set up, look into these assets, and find out how Yahya Jammeh acquired them. Meanwhile, if those assets disappear, what would be the point of a commission spending millions over a commission when the assets disappear? So there's a practical, the law is not always technical or academic, it's practical. And the practical sense that underlies the interim order jurisdiction is that assets are preserved for the benefit of the person who ultimately wins the case. But if the assets are no longer there, what was the fight about? Nothing. So
Okay.
that is why somebody had to do something.
All right.
Whether it was the court or the commission, I agree. We could have gone to, AG could have gone to court.
Not would have, not could have, should have.
That's your
That's
view.
my
For
opinion.
me, it doesn't
so
matter.
Then we don't agree.
No, I don't have to agree with you,
No, I am just correcting because you said
we
you
don't have
agree.
to agree.
Certainly not. We
don't
do
have
not
to
have to
agree.
agree. But you did put on record that you agreed with me, and then you went on to make a statement. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Sorry, I agreed with you about what aspect?
That's precisely my
I
issue.
agree that the court, the AG, could have gone. I agree that we did it. You said he should have gone. Perhaps, but really, learned counsel, what does it matter?
It matters because in your own evidence, the Commission of Inquiry is part of the executive. It is the executive who took President Jammeh, former President Jammeh, to court. Pending the determination of that impartial court hearing, the government, who is the plaintiff in the suit, did what it liked with the defendant's assets. Now, if that is not wrong, academic or not, I don't know what is, Ms. Bensouda.
Sorry, the government did what it liked. Okay, good.
Okay,
well, there's a distinction. Let me say.
I can clarify if you wish.
No, you don't have to.
Okay, go on.
You may be right. The government did what it liked, or negligently. It was negligent, perhaps, because if what you are saying is right and nothing was done right with the cattle, well, perhaps there was negligence.
Let me I have to clarify.
Let me finish.
No, Ms. Bensouda,
Okay.
I have to clarify. What I meant by the government did what it liked, I did not impute negligence or anything. What I meant to say is that the government followed its interest the way it sought to best to it.
I don't agree. You know, I don't agree because, again, we have to relate the role of the commission as when it said it's part of the executive, a tool of the executive as the Supreme Court did, and the Supreme Court emphasized, but it's an independent tool. It is independent in the decision it makes. And in relation, insofar as the assets were concerned, the sale of the vehicles were concerned, the commission was doing absolutely what it was supposed to do when it was given the power to make interim orders, was to make an order that was independent, that served the interests of both parties. What was the interest of both parties? That these assets do not dissipate. Either the government has a large garage where it can secure all the assets and make sure that nobody touches them and they'll have the same value at the end of the commission. But since government did not have that, neither the government nor the court had that. And the report was practically these assets were deteriorating. They are being vandalized. A responsible court, whether it was the court or the commission, would say,
but it was the commission, it was not the court.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter, Ms. Bensouda. Let's be factual here.
What I'm saying here is that a responsible court would say, counsel, what is your application? If you don't make an application, I will vacate your injunction. Do you understand what I'm saying? If Yahya Jammeh had taken an interest and entered appearance before the High Court and said, look, my assets have been attached. There's a case against me. The case is pending. Meanwhile, my assets are being stolen. The vehicles are deteriorating. The court will then turn to the Attorney General and say, Attorney General, do you have an application? What do you have to say? Otherwise, I will vacate this injunction so that the assets will go back to Yahya Jammeh. But let's remember, Yahya Jammeh did not enter appearance. He did not take an interest. He did not send anyone, as far as I know. Certainly before the commission, he did not appear, although he was served. He did not appoint an attorney. So under those circumstances, only the applicant could be heard. And what the applicant did was, as far as the cattle was concerned, he went to court and said, the commission made an order that the cattle be sold, but we come here for your leave to sell the cattle. The court, in its judgment, said, well, yes, okay, the cattle should be sold under the circumstances where they're disappearing. However, let the sheriff do it, because the sheriff is the court officer. That's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
Let's go to the
it came
vehicles.
to the vehicles.
Yes.
These vehicles were lying everywhere, deteriorating.
Can I correct that? They were not lying everywhere. They were under the custody of the plaintiff, the government of the Gambia.
You are right. Under the order, they were supposed to be under the custody of the plaintiff. But practically speaking, and the custody of not the plaintiff, but custody of the Registrar General and Gilma. Gilma is an agency under but they are entity. But you are right. Ultimately, these are all working for the government. So these were the vehicles. So the choice was the Attorney General, let the commission allow the commission to go ahead and do something or go back to the court. So as far as I remember, the conversation, the discussion was, does the commission have authority to make an order? If it did, it's simpler, faster, more practical. If it did not, then we have to go back to the court, make an application, and follow the process, and eventually, hopefully, the court will make the order that it wanted. So the latter point was true. Somebody else would say, okay, no, you shouldn't have. But from my perspective, it's all technical and academic and serves no purpose. So that's
Okay.
my last word on it, Council, please.
I'm sorry, I still have to probe on this.
And
but
as long as it's not a contention, I'm fine. Because really, we are not here to debate.
We are here to enlighten the members. And anyway, yes. Going back to make the point that from the first preservatory order of the court, which was active at the time, the Commission of Inquiry decided to make its own order. And it's fair to ask the question, can the Commission do that? Without the necessary context, yes, of course, the Commission can make a preservatory order. But there was already a preservatory order made by the court. Now the question is, can the Commission vary that order of the court? Because the effect of what the Commission's order would be is to vary the court's order. Now, in your first session in the committee, I was privileged to observe you lecture Honorable Kebalang Fofana on the fact that the judiciary is independent. And I remember to be fair to Honorable Kebalang Fofana, I remember saying that he does understand that the judiciary is independent.
Observation, Council, wait. This is not a lecture room. He answered to questions. Can you correct that?
My apologies, Honorable.
Correct that.
I will correct that.
Please.
He answered your question.
Continue.
Okay, I was privileged to your answer. And it was that the judiciary was independent. And I agree with you that the Commission of Inquiry is part of the executive, but in its role, operationally, it's independent. But so is the court. Now, here are two independent institutions. One made an order, the other is varying it. Would you still stick to your decision? And just to conclude by saying, you mentioned that the Commission was faced with a choice. With all due respect, I don't think there was a choice. The Commission to order.
Council, firstly, the court did not make a preservatory order. The court granted an interim injunction and gave custody of the assets to certain entities.
Please, before we move on that, enlighten us on the difference.
The interim injunction granting custody means they are actively placing control of the assets under different entities. There was no need for a preservatory order because the assets were not at risk. There was nothing before the court to say that the assets were at risk. What was before the court was that there was a probable cause that offenses were committed under the Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Act, and therefore these assets should be seized, and they were seized, and if they are seized, they cannot just be seized, and that's it. They have to be seized and placed under someone's control.
Yes, but before you move on, Ms. Bensouda, for the benefit of my members, the act of freezing, isn't that a preservatory act?
No. not in the way you are looking at it.
I'm not looking at it anyway. Am I?
The freezing of assets
Yes.
means you cannot deal with them.
Exactly.
No, that's a different from assets are at risk of getting bad, spoiling, and please preserve them so that they don't go bad. That's a different.
Exactly, because you're freezing them to preserve their value, aren't they? Isn't that?
No.
Okay, that's fine. I would just put on record that I contend with you, but you can proceed.
Mr. My learned friend.
Yes, learned senior.
When your assets are frozen,
Yes.
it doesn't mean they are being put in a whatever. No, when they are frozen, it's because they're being taken from you. You're freezing your assets. Means it's bank accounts. Good example. It means I cannot access my bank account.
Because
the money is there.
We want to maintain the bank account the way it is.
You want to maintain the money, so I don't take it.
Exactly.
If you freeze my movable asset, it means I cannot move. I cannot take them. I cannot take out my car from the garage.
I agree.
It can be in the most secure environment, but I am being prevented from access to it.
Yes.
And that's why it's called a freezing order.
And
now, a preservative order is, okay, we go a step further. You have frozen these assets. But, for instance, maybe it's containers of tomatoes, tomato cans. I freeze the assets. They are perfectly secure where they are. But then we know there is an expiry date. I go back to the court and say, well, we came to court, we sought a freezing order, these containers of tomato paste, but there's an expiry date, and these tomato pastes are going to expire. But courts, you cannot lift the freezing order, because if you lift the freezing order, the defendant is going to take the tomatoes. So really, court, what we are asking you to do is to issue an order that the tomatoes be preserved or be sold. Is part of that, be sold. And since this is tomato and it can be liquidated, you know, asset is asset. You can liquidate it into money. You turn it into money. You go to court and say, well, there's an expiry date. I don't think the defendant should be, the freezing order should be lifted, but let's sell the tomato and put the money aside. Whoever wins now, take the money. Now we are no longer talking about tomato. We have converted them to money. So the freezing order is not a preservatory order in that sense. All right? Some other order could have been made to preserve the assets, to say, okay, let's do something else that would make sure that the assets remain, but they're as assets.
Can I make a proposition?
You know, so basically, that's why I'm making the distinction.
Can I make a proposition?
Let me just finish your question,
Sure,
because it's a very important question. I did not see it as varying at the time. But, you know, we learn, we live and learn. It's been 6 years. Maybe in hindsight, you know, you have smarter lawyers now. In hindsight, maybe it can be looked at that way. But I don't know. But from a perspective of what happened, because I'm testifying, what happened at the time, the question was, commissions cannot go to court. We don't go to court. It's the Attorney General who had the choice, either to go to court when the reports were made to him that, look, these assets are depreciating, they are being vandalized. It was for him to either go to the court and make the application, as he did in the case of the cattle. We said, okay, we made the order, but perhaps you should go to court and seek approval. He went to court, court approved, but changed the order. So it was his choice. But the commission had the power without the Attorney General. Without the Attorney General, it had the power. Having gone around and seeing what was other steps ought to have been taken by the court, and they haven't. What are we to do? We have interim power. So look, let's sell. We don't think the court will have an objection. Maybe even if it has, we have an answer. Let's sell all the assets. We sell the assets, liquidate them. They'll no longer be cars. There'll be money lying in the account. Now, whether that sale was done right is what you are investigating here, isn't it? That's something else. But whether the commission had the power to sell all the assets, liquidate all the assets, put the money in the bank, and maybe Yahya Jammeh will win his case and claim the money, or the Attorney General will win the case and claim the money for the government, that's somewhere down the line. But the duty of the commission was to make sure that those assets do not deteriorate further, those assets are not left to dissipate further, to be cannibalized further, so that they become valueless and everybody loses. Yahya Jammeh loses, the state loses. However, Yahya Jammeh would have a remedy, which is to come after the state and say, you took my assets, they are all gone, give me money. So the responsible thing for the commission to do is what it did. Somebody else may have a different opinion, but That's fine.
Okay. I would just like to make a proposition that both acts were preservation. MOJ 5A, which is the order of the 22nd day of May 2017, preserved the asset of the asset. For me, they are both acts of preservation. Now, the High Court, I promise this is the last time I'm going to ask this, but the High Court had the plain of having custody of the assets without dissipation. Two independent bodies here, Ms. Bensouda. And perhaps let me ask it in this way. In hindsight, would that decision still be upheld?
What decision?
The decision for the commission to sell the vehicles without seeking the leave of the court.
Whether in hindsight, if we had to do it all over again?
You would do it again.
Without a doubt.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Ms. Bensouda. I'll hand you back to the chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. That was a good exchange. Ms. Bensouda, thank you so very much for coming. We've decided that we'll close today at 6 o'clock, at least to give you some time as well. But remember, tomorrow you will appear before us again, tomorrow Friday.
What time?
I advise we do 10 o'clock. Council has indicated that her issues are not extensive. Now it's for the chair to advise himself with his members whether your issues are extensive.
All right. So then tomorrow, 10 o'clock.
Would I be required to come back after Juma as well? Do you sit after Juma on Fridays?
It depends. That depends on the conversation tomorrow. It depends on
I'd
the
really
the
appreciate
issues.
it if we can finish tomorrow.
But I'm sure we'll finish
We
before Friday press.
do sit, just to answer your question, but I believe this is something we can do off record.
Yeah, but then you will appear tomorrow at 10 o'clock for continuation, and then the rest we will determine that later. Yeah.